thought about you. Don't know why I keep on doing what I'm told to do, when the rules are made up by someone we never knew. Baby, wipe your tears and hear me out. We don't need someone to feel alright. Let's do the streets on a Monday. Let's call your exes and tell them they can join us too. Why always worry about money when you can get rich by trying to see the outside?
Welcome, everyone. We have an exciting show for you tonight on a topic that we've been discussing with regard to divorce and narcissism. The show is about co-parenting through divorce with a narcissist. I am here today with my wonderful co-host, Pamela Elaine Nichols. She is a gifted author and speaker and coach, and I am so lucky to have her on my team. And then I am just thrilled to have my very first guest on the Attorney Lenore show, Dr. Lauren Napolitano. She is a doctor of psychology, and her practice focuses on many things, but specifically thriving after divorce, co-parenting, and exactly on topic for us today, healing from narcissistic abuse. So I am so thrilled to have you here, Lauren. You are, an expert in the field, and I can give my insights as a lawyer and practically dealing with clients who have narcissistic spouses or co-parents, but we're going to get it from the actual expert in this area, you. So I'm so excited that you're here.
Thanks, Lenore. I'm thrilled to be here.
Oh, wonderful. You're welcome.
Yay. With that said, we're going to get right into the questions that people have asked about this topic. And I'm going to ask the question and let you, Attorney Lenore, and you, Dr. Lauren, unpack those questions. But before we do that, I'm wondering if Dr. Lauren, would you tell us just a little bit about what narcissism is? We throw that term around a lot. When I'm talking to people, oh, my ex is a narcissist. Oh, my wife was a narcissist. And I'm not sure that people are really appropriately applying that disorder. So would you mind just breaking that down for us a bit before we jump into the first question?
Sure. Good question, Pamela. I would say the two key features that I look for in terms of diagnosing narcissism is one is sort of the absence of empathy, meaning that it's not even a callousness so much, it's just an inability to put themselves in someone else's shoes. So whereas, you or I might say, oh, so-and-so is not feeling well, I hope they're okay, let me check on them. A narcissist just really doesn't have that capacity to think about other people. I think the other thing that is also very important to notice is that they're usually very emotionally immature, meaning that like if you had a 2-year-old child and that 2-year-old child thought that they were Superman or Spider-Man or Wonder Woman, that's very age appropriate to think that you have these grandiose powers, right, at 2 years old. But frequently narcissists still, even at 20, 30, 40, 50, 70, believe that they are grandiose, that they are better than other people, that they have powers that most of us don't have. So it's a lack of empathy and usually some element of grandiosity.
Can you have extremes of that? Like, I can think of a lot of people that fit that, but they're not as severe with those elements. Is that even possible? Is there a spectrum?
There is absolutely a spectrum of narcissism. A lot of people with narcissism, honestly, are not that malignant. They just can't read people. That's sort of the milder narcissist. People that just really can't read people. They struggle with friendships. They struggle with relationships because they don't have a lot of empathy or attunement. And then as you move up the spectrum, it's more grandiosity and sort of like a cruelty and a need to like dominate people. So the people, when we're talking about divorcing a narcissist, we're usually talking about more sort of classically malignant narcissists, people that are trying to dominate someone else.
Okay. And the last question before we get to the Dear Attorney Lenore questions is, can you heal from narcissism? Is it possible to heal from it, to become a better version of yourself? Is that even possible?
That is a trick question. I think conceivably it could be possible, but the fundamental issue is someone with narcissism typically isn't aware that they have narcissism and isn't typically aware of any shortcomings. So they would be very reluctant to try therapy because they generally feel that the problem exists outside of them. So yes, if they could admit that they had a problem, maybe, but part of the disorder is not realizing that the problem stems with you.
Yeah, I'm going to say this because I really think that some people think of doing this, as crude as it may sound. So forgive me in advance. And that is, I can imagine some spouses wishing there was a pill that they could drop into the drink of their narcissistic spouse without them knowing, to help cure or heal them from it. Because if a narcissist doesn't recognize, then they're not going to pursue any help. But maybe they can be helped with a little drop of pill.
I think that's most people get divorced want a little pill to drop in their spouse's
for
drink,
sure.
Right?
no matter what.
No matter what, exactly. So someone wants to patent that. Someone wants to create that and patent it, let me know. Okay, so we're going to go right to the first Dear Attorney Lenore question. We're going to ask if, JM, if you put that up on the screen for us, please. Managing manipulation. Dear Attorney Lenore, I have been married to my husband for 8 years, and together we have 3 wonderful young children. Over the years, our marriage has been a constant battle of managing his ego, his need for control, and his manipulative tactics. My primary concern, however, is in how he might react and behave towards our children if I were to pursue a divorce. I fear that my husband may try to use them as leverage or manipulate them against me. Are there legal and emotional strategies I should know about to ensure the children's safety and well-being during and after divorce? Sincerely, children first.
Mm.
Okay,
Wow,
take it away.
That is a wonderful question. And what I would start with that is, first and foremost is getting in with someone either in family therapy or individual therapy that can help you navigate this co-parenting relationship with this narcissist, not only to help you not be triggered as you're going through this legal process of divorce, but also to model for your children a healthier way to interact with the narcissistic parent. And I know, Lauren, that you have said there's 5 commandments for co-parenting with a narcissist. So I think this is an excellent thing to put in their toolbox. So if you can elaborate on that.
Sure. I always recommend the same 5 commandments when dealing with a narcissist, because as upsetting and destructive as they are, they're also very similar in a lot of ways. So you can boil it down to some tools. So number 1, I always say, is expect the worst, right? This person is going to pull out all the stops to intimidate you and to dominate you. And you should expect a lot of games and manipulation. That's just, don't be surprised. Number 2, when communicating with a narcissist, put everything in writing. meaning there shouldn't be spoken conversations, there shouldn't be in person, there shouldn't be phone, everything should be via email. Not because you can then, hold up that email and say, haha, you said Tuesday was soccer practice and you're here on Wednesday. It's not going to stop the manipulation per se, but at least it can ground you in terms of knowing, no, I know you said Tuesday was soccer. I'm not crazy, right? It's just a way of having a track record for yourself. Number 3 is really important, which is do not give supply. And for anyone that doesn't know what supply is, the way that a narcissist operates is that they want to provoke you to make you upset. And the reason that they want to provoke you to make you upset is because when you are upset with them, whereas most of us would say, oh gosh, I don't want to make someone upset, a narcissist perceives that as evidence that they have power. So when you act upset, it delights them because it's evidence that they have power. So as this person is provoking you and making you crazy, because they will, you really want to guard your reactions, because the more you say, you're driving me crazy, or you flipping things around, or you're a piece of crap, or all the things that you're going to want to say, you have to realize that you're actually feeding the narcissist with this supply. It's called supply. Number 4, do not ask for favors. Do not try to switch things around. Don't ask for different custody days. Don't ask for that person to accommodate you, because they will then feel like you owe them a favor, and you don't want to be in that situation. And the last one is take control by making your own plans, meaning don't just let the narcissist dictate everything, make your own plans, like take control and lead your own life. Like try to compartmentalize this person's power. Don't let them dominate you in terms of your social life or your family or your happiness. That's it.
Perfect. That's perfect. And I think that getting an attorney that understands a narcissist, that will not be triggered by the narcissist or charmed by the narcissist, is very key, because they will use every avenue as their stage and to manipulate everyone. So it's really not just the spouse, it is whoever else is involved. So these are all great pointers, legally and emotionally.
Yeah. I have a quick question about those 5 that you shared with us, Dr. Lauren. And what about when you're still living with the narcissist? I mean, with respect to number 2, everything in writing, like how do you even manage that if, you might be even still sleeping in the same bed?
Well, you're right. I mean, that's a really difficult situation. And I've definitely worked with people who are not ready to divorce a narcissist and are trying to kind of like be ships in the night in the same house for the sake of the kids. And I think in that case, again, doing things in writing, though, could still be helpful. You might still want to just kind of email plans around kids and logistics. But the main thing, I think, if you have to live in the same house, would be to try not to give supply, like try not to get into these emotional arguments, because again, that's what the narcissist wants. So even though they're going out of their way to make you irate, to just try to steer clear, which I'm sure would be very hard in the house.
Oh yeah. And Attorney Lenore, do you, in this situation, if I'm practicing these 5 principles, should I tell my spouse that I'm going to get a divorce, or should I just spring it on them?
No, you should just do it.
Do it.
Don't give them any forewarning or anything like that. Go to an attorney, find out what your rights are, gather the documentation that you need, be prepared, and then just draw the line in the sand and file the divorce, because you will not get a positive reaction anyway. And you need, as Lauren said, you need to make your own plans. You need to take action on your own. I mean, a lot of times people that have lived with a narcissist, because they just don't want to live with that explosion, they've learned to try and mitigate and appease somebody that they'll never be able to appease. So that might be the fallback. In this situation, no. like Lauren said, you're never going to appease them. Whatever you give them, they're going to use to manipulate you and upset you. So, you have to stop doing that dance with them and just move forward.
Got it. If you're just now joining us, you are watching the Dear Attorney Lenore show. We are tackling the topic of divorcing a narcissist while helping your children be protected, mending their broken hearts over what will possibly be a very difficult road for them. We have with us Dr. Lauren Napolitano, who's a psychologist, and Dr. Attorney Lenore, who is our divorce mediator. We're going to go to the next question. So JM, would you put that up on the screen, please? Protecting our greatest asset, dear Attorney Lenore. I can't stay married to this woman any longer. I've tried my best, but nothing I do seems to work. Her self-absorption and petty behavior has become unbearable. We have a teenage daughter in a gifted program at school. Upsetting her world with the divorce could be devastating for our daughter academically and emotionally. How can I best protect myself and our daughter from any potential manipulations, false allegations, or other negative tactics my wife might use? Sincerely, I want out. Okay.
Well, I hate to say it, but getting a divorce might be the best thing for your child. I mean, she would not have to deal with all of these manipulations and the things that your spouse is doing. A lot of times if a spouse is doing it to their spouse, they're doing it to the children because they don't know how to relate to anybody else. So the best thing that possibly could be is that, again, you'll have to consider a divorce and talk to either an attorney or a counselor to help you navigate your way out of this insidious relationship you're in. You're completely entwined and you need somebody to help you figure out how to cut these cords and move forward. And so, Lauren, what would be some of the things if you had this spouse come to you with these questions?
Well, first, Lenore, I agree with you, which is that there's an assumption that the divorce is worse for kids. And that might be true in some families, but I also have worked with other families where I think walking on eggshells before the divorce was worse for the kids, right? Sometimes the kids are relieved when the parents finally just say, I can't do this anymore. But I think either way, I think if you got the child some support, either a guidance counselor at school or a therapist outside of school, give them someone outside of the family to kind of vent to and get support from, I think that would be very helpful.
It's interesting that you mentioned walking on eggshells because I cited a book, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but it's written by a mediator attorney, Bill Eddy, called Walking on Eggshells. And it's about divorcing a narcissist. But so have you seen children that have narcissistic parents that have gone through the divorce? How have you seen them survive it? And what, other than a therapist, are there any other supports that you think might be helpful to the child and or the non-narcissistic spouse?
I think in addition to therapy, I think people really need to lean on other people, right? Whether they're close with their extended family members. I think for kids, it's really important to have them involved in whatever it is that they love, whether it's theater or sports or handball or arts classes, whatever, something where they feel that they have other people to be with. I think it's all really important. And I think if you're going through a divorce, it's really important to meet other people that are maybe a mile marker ahead of you in the journey, right? Someone that's maybe been divorced for a year or 5 years, or someone that can kind of give you faith that, okay, well, this part might be horrible, but it gets easier.
Okay, great.
Dr. Lauren, I'm assuming that in your practice, you are seeing victims of narcissism rather than the narcissists themselves. Is that correct?
100%. Yeah.
Okay, and do you find that empowering that victim, I'll call it, helps in the navigation of the relationship?
Well, I think usually people that are narcissistically abused, so to speak, don't know that they were narcissistically abused during the relationship. And oftentimes they don't even know as they're coming out. They know it was a toxic relationship or that they were very unhappy. But usually in working like with when I work with clients, it's about labeling like, oh, that was gaslighting, that was manipulation, that was, lying. And it's really empowering and enlightening for people to realize, oh, I wasn't crazy, or I wasn't doing anything wrong, or that was unfair. And it's very eye-opening for people, but it does help them to get a lot stronger.
Okay. All right, let's go to the next question on the doc and see if how Attorney Lenore and Dr. Lauren unpack it. Custody concerns. Dear Attorney Lenore, my wife and I have 2 boys ages 4 and 7. They are the joy of my life. I have the pleasure of being a stay-at-home dad who also homeschools. I filed for a divorce and now my wife is threatening to take the boys and move into another place miles away from our current home and into a regular school. She is a primary income earner. I'm devastated by her threats. Are there specific types of custody arrangements that might work best in situations like this? Sincerely, stay-at-home dad. Oh, I feel for him.
Really? Oh, I know. That's awful. Well, I mean, stay-at-home dad, stay-at-home mom, you have been the primary caretaker of the children, and it's going to be disruptive enough getting a divorce, let alone, and the 2 of you separating households, let alone upending the schooling and the custody arrangement. And, this spouse that's making these threats, she can't just go and do that. The courts are not, with the appropriate filings, the courts are going to stop the parents from keeping the children, taking them away from one another, changing their schools and things like that. So there is a lot that can be done to keep at least the status quo in place in a lot of ways. And in terms of custody arrangements, sure, there's lots of ways to structure custody arrangement where both parents will have access to the child, but at their age, the courts are going to probably, and I'm just speaking from my experience here in Pennsylvania, the courts are going to lean into what the status quo has been, who the primary caretaker has been, what the school is that they've been going to, and any other kind of things that are going to be supportive emotionally of these children. So again, consult with a good custody attorney who's well-versed in handling custody cases, understands narcissism, and also someone who might be able to work with another skilled attorney, or in either a collaborative way or even in a litigation case, to get the 2 of you to come up with a schedule that's going to work best for your kids without having that stranger in a black robe, the judge, who won't know you or your kids, make these decisions based on, you each cherry picking the best parts of your case to present in front of them. So that would be, the first thing. And again, you have to learn how to kind of couch this with the other side, because it is going to be, if you get really upset, again, like Lauren said, it's, more fuel for their fire. And if they know that what they're proposing is upsetting you, oh, they're going to go after it full bore. So it might be just like, well, that might be what you think, and just leave it at that. But knowledge is power. So definitely go to an attorney and find out what are the possibilities, and arm yourself with information so that you can't be as easily rattled by somebody like that. And Dr. Lauren, please jump in with what would be some more practical things that this person could do in this situation.
Well, no, I would just echo what you said, Lenore, which is that probably part of what the person is trying to do by saying, oh, your homeschooling days are over and your primary custody, like you're not going to be stay at home anymore. Like they're trying to make you hysterical. So the goal is always just to try to be as poker faced as possible, because if you say, I love chocolate, they're going to say all the chocolate's going in the trash. Right? If you say the sky is blue, they're going to say the sky is green. So you have to really work hard not to take the bait, which is so much easier said than done. But
yes.
Yeah.
So my question is, I'm listening to both of you, and I can't help but think, so other than the pill that we drop in their water to change their behavior, what is the thing that would really stop the narcissist in their tracks? Like, what is that thing, or what is that set of words that would be the game changer?
Go ahead, Lenore.
I would think it's, don't, like you said, don't engage. Just don't engage, because once you step into their arena, into their ring, you're fighting their, based on their rules. So, I just don't give them any response, which is so much easier said than done. But no, I wouldn't give them any response. I would just pretend like you didn't hear them, because that's some things that, a narcissist will do. If they can't get a reaction from one person, then they'll go bother another person to get a reaction from them. Because they really don't have a good sense of self. Correct me if I'm wrong, but they really don't. It's always reflective, because if I understand in my layman terms, in their development, it's been arrested because they didn't get that validation or mirroring from another parent. So they just don't really understand where they stop and the other person begins.
Yeah, it just feels so hopeless. I mean, I'm just thinking about the person in it. It feels so hopeless. Like there's nothing that I can do really, other than to try to dodge and weave and be a robot with this person. It almost feels like they have more power than I do.
I wouldn't say that. In my, it really is like letting water roll off a duck's back. If you don't let them get to you, they'll just go, they will just go somewhere else and do, try and manipulate or torture someone else. It's hard when you have your kids, but when you limit the interactions, and when you set those boundaries, and when there is this schedule and it's just what it is, it actually can be very freeing, because they can't manipulate you anymore. They can't upset you anymore. You know what they're trying to do, and you're looking at what the reality is, not what they're trying to paint the reality. They're not, because they really don't deal in reality. So, it actually is really freeing. It's being self-focused. It's not being other focused, because when you're in with a narcissist, you're always trying to placate them, and you're in the cycle of being other focused. But when you cut those ties, and when you lay down your boundaries, and it's usually someone who has trouble setting boundaries that gets involved with the narcissist. When you set those boundaries, it's very freeing and empowering.
Okay.
Am I off base?
I agree.
Okay.
Yeah. If you're just now watching, welcome to the Dear Attorney Lenore show with your host, Attorney Lenore, and her special guest today, Dr. Lauren Napolitano. We are talking about breaking bonds, mending hearts, divorcing a narcissist while prioritizing kids. And yes, it is possible, although it sounds impossible, to prioritize kids when you are dealing with a narcissist and considering a divorce. If you have a question for Attorney Lenore, you can just write it in the chat, or you can post it on Facebook and start your question with Dear Attorney Lenore, and then I will read it for both of them. But for now, we'll go back to the questions that came in before. Let's go to the next question on the docket. Is it too late for the children? Oh, Dear Attorney Lenore, my husband and I have been married 28 years and have 2 adult children. Most of their lives, they have been under the manipulative, egocentric parenting of their father. I felt helpless to do anything to change his behavior. I should have left him and taken the kids years ago. I am beginning to see similar behavior of my husband in my adult son. Although our children are adults, is it too late for them to get support so they don't become like their father? Sincerely, stayed too long. Boy, someone sounds like they feel really guilty about staying in that marriage.
Yeah. Well, I don't, and correct me if I'm wrong, Lauren, but I don't know that necessarily narcissists always raise narcissistic children, but there is certain damage. Obviously, it's very traumatic. But everybody has a chance to mitigate heal really the wounds of their childhood. There's nobody that has grown up that hasn't been wounded in some way in their life and their childhood. As I like to say, none of us grew up in the Brady Bunch. We all grew up in the Banana Bunch. So, and even the Brady Bunch was a blended family, which was pretty, progressive for back then. But for adult children, they have to come to the realization themselves that they're not happy, and they need to delve into their own personal experiences to heal themselves. As a mom, you can talk to them and try and have honest conversations about what their experience was growing up, and how it made them feel, and be honest with them about how you felt, and what you wish you would have done differently. And perhaps in starting that kind of conversation, that will open the door to help them feel that it's okay that they felt that way, and that therapy is okay. Going to therapy yourself is a good way to let them show them that therapy's okay. Because a lot of times with narcissists, as Lauren was saying, they put you down. They're better than everybody. So if you go and get therapy, that means that parent was right. You're flawed. Something's wrong with you. So that might be a reason that a child may hide from that and not want to go to therapy, because they don't want to confirm that what their parent was saying about them is correct. That's some of my experiences. I'm not sure, Lauren, from a therapeutic standpoint, what would your suggestions or observations or experiences have been?
I think there's 2 ways that I would look at that. I would look at it in terms of, again, like narcissism being a spectrum. There are some people that are kind of more benign narcissists, meaning that They have trouble making friends. They have trouble keeping relationships because they aren't very empathic, right? And that person might genuinely come to their parent and say, I don't get it. Like, everybody has a friend group but me. Why don't I ever have a friend group, right? And that might be an opening to say, well, like we might want to pursue some support. We might want to get some outside feedback, right? But the other, the other end of the spectrum is there are parents who have adult children who are more malignant narcissists, right? Where they really take after the malignant narcissist parent who is abusive or callous or mean. And in that case, even though that child is your child, you might still need to really work on not enabling that behavior, setting boundaries, being clear, being firm, because you don't want to enable your child, right? Even if you love them to bits, you want them to know that, like, the world doesn't operate like that. So it's, it can be hard if you have an adult child that is sort of headed in that direction. But there's a lot of resources, I think, for parents whose children, are struggling in that way.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So there is some hope for the adult child. So the wife in this particular case, it feels pretty guilty that she stayed so long in that marriage. What would be the hope for her?
Well, I mean, therapy, really therapy. If you could do better, you would do better. And depending on what her situation is, whether or not she had a career or didn't have a career, or what, how she feels about spending the rest of her life with this person, she may decide herself that she wants a divorce,
Mm-hmm.
and start living a freer life herself, and lead by example for her children, to show that I'm not putting up with this, and you don't have to put up with this. So that might be something else that she could consider, but certainly she should get therapy for herself, because, again, that's a role model that she can give her children. And sometimes kids are sucked into this dynamic where they feel they need to protect, one parent from another parent, or be the peacemaker, or things like that. And that sucks the kids back in and really enmeshes them in their parents' issue. And then they don't get to go on and have their own life. So by this spouse taking control, taking responsibility for her contribution to this, and trying to change that dynamic in her own way, she also is freeing the kids to not be part of this toxic dysfunctionality, because she's breaking the cycle. She's, changing the dance steps. She's taken the needle off the record that everyone, has been dancing to this music and saying no more. So she could do something in and of herself just to change the dynamic.
Dr. Lauren, why would a woman stay in the marriage that long when it was that bad? And especially with 2 kids, why?
Well, I think it's very common as the relationship is coming to a close to sit there and feel a lot of shame about it, to say, oh, I should have seen the signs. I'm so embarrassed. I'm so dumb. Like, I'm so pathetic. But the reality is there is a ton of manipulation in a narcissistic relationship. So there's a reason why you didn't leave. And it's because the person was manipulating you and gaslighting you and confusing you and then hoovering you back. And so if it had been easier, you would have left, but you were basically kind of caught in a spider's web for 20 plus years. So it isn't about the shame of like, oh, I should have left. It's like, well, sure. And somebody shouldn't have been pickpocketed on the subway, but you don't see it when it's happening.
Right.
That's
right.
a
It's
great
very
answer.
That is. And it's very insidious. A relationship with a narcissist is very insidious, from what I understand. They're very charming. They just seem like, they look great on paper, but to the public. But behind closed doors is who you start to find out who they really are. And a lot of times it's not until you've been ensnared that you find out the truth. Am
Mhm.
I off base with that?
Yeah.
That's the way it goes.
Yeah,
Okay.
I appreciate your answer, Dr. Lauren, because it's full of compassion for
Mhm.
the victim. And while you were sharing that, I was recalling in my mind that I had a neighbor who was living with a narcissist, the father of her child. And she reached out to me for help because that particular day he kicked her out of the house. And so she asked me if I would be helpful to her to, she needed to get out, she needed to leave. And I remember spinning my wheels, helping this woman go to the police, helping her go to attorneys to get advice. And then and this went on for days. I actually shared this with Lenore. This went on for days of me investing all this time in trying to help her. And then maybe the fifth day, she comes back to me, and she's decided to stay with her spouse. And I was like, wait. We just invested all this time to help you get free. But he had said to her, honey, you can go get a job, the thing you've been wanting to do for a long time. And you know what? I'll give you the keys back to the car, because he had taken the keys from her, gave her the keys back. He had cut off her credit cards. So he turned them back on. And so she's staying. And she's been in this cycle for 9 years. So when you gave that answer, I thought, wow, she's in a vicious cycle, but she doesn't even recognize she's really in a vicious cycle, because he's so good at making her feel like, oh, it's okay. Everything will be okay. I'll take good care of you. And she believes him. And they go on for months, okay, until it's another blow up.
Yeah, that's so funny that you brought her up, Pam, because I was laying in bed last night going, what happened to Pam's neighbor?
Yep, that's right.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
right. I mean, but I have a different heart space for her now, hearing your response, that this is not about even putting shame upon her, because those of us who are on the outside looking in can really criticize and say, how could you? Don't you see the signs? It's so obvious. But those who are in it, that's a whole different ballgame, whole different landscape. So to have compassion probably is the best thing we can offer for someone who's dealing with this. What do you think, Dr. Lauren?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can, it's the type of abuse that you can only see once you're out. If you're in it, you can't see it. It's not till you're kind of on the other side that you say, oh my gosh, like what was that? Like, how did I stay? What? And then the shame can be sort of overwhelming. But the reality is it's impossible to see it when you're in it.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's a great answer. I think we have one more question. If you are just now joining us, you are watching the Dear Attorney Lenore show, where I ask questions live of individuals who are seeking advice and insight on a particular topic. Our topic today is how to divorce the narcissist while prioritizing your children. I think we have one more question. So I'm going to ask our Zoom master to put it up for us. Okay. She is impossible. Dear Attorney Lenore, I can't deal with this woman any longer. She seems to find satisfaction in making my life miserable, particularly when the kids are in my custody. She berates me in front of the kids, sends me nasty text messages, tells me I'm a lousy parent, just like I was a lousy spouse. Too often, when it's my turn to pick up the kids from her, she is not even home and won't answer her phone. We are separated and in the process of a difficult divorce. Sometimes I just want to wring her neck. How do I go through this difficult process of co-parenting with a narcissist? Is it even possible to get along? Sincerely, fed up. I really like the I want to wring her neck part. Like that's calling a thing a thing.
Yeah. And yeah, and that's sadly, how frustrating it gets, and that's why they keep doing it. And so in terms of the court, you have to have very, very specific custody orders in place or agreements in place that you do not differ from. And so if she's not there when you come to pick the kids up, well, then maybe you have to reverse it. Maybe she has to drop the kids off to you. And you drop the kids off to her, something like that. There's things that you can do. There's different parenting apps that you can use to keep track of these things. But again, not showing that you get upset, because that's why they keep doing it. And so those are some of the things that you would do. And again, co-parenting counseling can be very helpful, because the parents are forced to be in the same room, and there is this third party that's calling a thing and calling them out on what they're doing. And perhaps, that can give some way of modeling a different way to interact in terms of their narcissistic co-parenting. And of course, when they're in the middle of these difficult custody cases, if this is a true narcissist, well, they're trying to win at all costs. So they're trying to trip you up. They're trying to get more information to show the court why you aren't good at being a parent, but they're so much better. They can actually use things against you and tell the kids you're not a good parent. And it can get really nasty. And that's sometimes why it's almost better not to be in the middle of litigation where custody is concerned, because it really is just fueling their energy to keep going with this. Sometimes co-parent counseling, family counseling is a better way to approach this, because it doesn't give them as much of a stage to take control and get the spotlight, which is what they're thriving on. And getting down to brass tacks, Dr. Lauren, what other things do you find helpful in these therapeutic settings that can help shift this?
Well, I think part of it is just managing your expectations. The tail end of that question was something to the effect of, how are we going to get along? And the reality is that's way too high of a bar. The goal isn't, yes, in a perfect world, you would have an amicable divorce, right? We're friends. We all do Thanksgiving together. We all take the kids on Sundays to the diner, and we have family dinner. Sort of this conscious uncoupling method, right? Which is like obviously what everyone would love to have. But if you're divorcing a narcissist, you have to adjust your expectations. You're not going to get along with this person. The goal is just to keep it really kind of civil and indifferent and kind of brass tacks. So rather than thinking, oh, how can we make it sort of warm? It's like, no. The goal is just to make it kind of smooth.
I listened to your answers, Dr. Lauren and Attorney Lenore, to all of these questions, and I can't help but make what might be a very unsympathetic statement. Is like, I don't even think a narcissist really loves their children. So they're fighting for something that they really don't really care about. They care about themselves. Am I being too harsh?
Well, I think, like Lauren says, it's a matter of degree. And they love as best as they can with whatever tools that they have. And so the empathy with a narcissist is, they have very low self-esteem, and they feel very wounded themselves. Now, you can't get sucked into that, but you can have compassion for that. And this is the parent your children have. And so they need to make peace with what kind of relationship they're going to have with that person. And they're not all bad. You saw some good in them, and that's why you picked them. And so you want the children to see the good part of who their parent is, and embrace that, and not identify with the negative, because that's That's not going to help your child's self-esteem. Um, you know, everyone's limited in different ways, and I guess you can't totally discount their importance of being your children's co-parent, because they're not capable of loving their kids the way you do.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Lauren, I mean, in the case of my neighbor, the father, my neighbor's husband, would tell the child very, very negative things about the mother to the child, causing the child a great deal of angst and stress and anxiety. And I just can't imagine that is some extension of love.
Mm-hmm.
What do you say?
Well, yeah, I mean, I agree with you completely, Pamela. But again, I think the narcissist is very immature. And so they tend to be kind of impulsive and vindictive. And it's unfortunate. I think those kind of smear campaigns happen all the time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But typically, the child, as they grow up, they understand who is the more impulsive parent and who's the less impulsive parent. And they, to Lenore's point, they kind of let it roll off their back a little bit too, sort of like, okay, mom or dad is spouting off again, and I'm just gonna tune them out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I believe that is the last of the questions for the Dear Attorney Lenore show. So, Attorney Lenore, would you like to close us out with any of your final thoughts? And then Dr. Lauren can share too, and your offers.
So there is a way to divorce differently than just going in and duking it out in court. There's mediation and there's collaborative law, and these options are possible even with a narcissist. And in the event that you do have to go through the court system or with an attorney, definitely find somebody who understands how a narcissist ticks, because that's part of the strategy of handling the case. In terms of, if you want a consultation with me, and you're listening to this program, I would have a consultation with you at a reduced fee, at $100, and to have a 60-minute to kind of strategize with you what might be the best option for you moving forward. Also, I'm offering a coaching course of Don't Litigate, Mediate. And if you have any interest in that, you can also reach out to me. You can reach out to me at divorcedonedifferentlypa@gmail.com, or check out my website, Divorced Done Differently PA, and show your interest. There is a drop down tab for the coaching course, and we will keep you updated with that development. And just remember, this is a journey, and there are lots of people to hold your hand along the way, and things will get better. And there's people like Dr. Lauren that can help support you and show the way. And I know, Dr. Lauren, you have lots of resources that you offer to parents going through divorce. And if you can share that with our viewers, that would be wonderful.
Sure. I have a support group for women going through divorce that's online. You can go to my website, LaurenNapolitano.com. You can reach out to me there. I will have a free webinar coming out at the end of September that is about co-parenting with a narcissistic parent during the holidays, because holiday custody battles are very much peak in terms of custody battles. So there will be a free webinar dropping at the end of this month. If you follow me on Instagram, it's Lauren Napolitano PsyD. All of the details will be available there.
Okay, great. That's wonderful. And anything else that you would like to add, or any other way that people can get in touch with you? Because you are a great resource for people going through divorce.
Mhm.
Oh, thanks, Lenore. No, you can just go to my website. It's laurennapolitano.com.
Hey,
Yeah,
thank you.
that's good.
Well, this
Thank
has
you
been
so much.
so informative. Thank you so much for being our guest. I think people are going to get a lot out of what you've shared today. And, you're sort of that guiding light through a very dark tunnel for people. So thank you for everything that you do.
Thanks, Lenore. Thanks, Pamela.
Yeah, it's been fun. We're gonna head on out now. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
I